Hello and blessings, my beautiful souls. Avalon Cameron here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I just wanted to have a quick conversation with you. I've been thinking about things quite intensely lately, and I had a really great conversation with a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, and it's been sitting in my mind for a really long time. And it has everything to do with our psychic development, our psychic empowerment. And we were just having a really casual conversation about how channeling takes place. And I was exchanging, information with her, and it was just a really beautiful and nurturing conversation. But when we have these types of conversations, it helps to open up new areas and aspects and perspectives in our mind. So I thought that this would be a great conversation for us to have. Let's talk about how channeling feels like, what connecting with our psychic powers, our psychic gifts feels like, because it's not something that I ever hear other people talk about, the sensation that sort of courses through the body when we experience these things. And there is a reason for that as well, and that is that for some people they don't have any kind of tactile physical reaction. There's a little fly buzzing around. But for others who are experienced connecting and looking at ways of further developing those skills, we can become quite attuned to the subtleties of these psychic gifts, particularly the more dominant ones. And so for me, I do a lot of channeling, I do a lot of spirit work. And one of the things that I find really fascinating to talk about is the fact that spirit work looks different for everyone. I have quite a few family members that practice spirit work as well because I'm hereditary, but we experience these gifts in many ways quite similar, areas and, similarities involved. But for the most part, the way that we speak of it, the way that we articulate, the way that we can pinpoint the solidity of these moments is very, very different. So for me, I am a pretty visual type of person, and as I'm looking at the camera, as I'm looking at you right now, through you, through this moment, through this reality, I can see beyond that. I can see and feel beyond that. If I was to stare in one fixed location for any length of time, and my eyes were to soften, which is something that typically happens during scrying, I would just simply look through the mirror and through the veil and to another place, to another area, looking at another entity, another spirit. That is how it works for me. And then I hear it. Sometimes the notion of hearing can feel a little tricky to describe, but during this conversation that I was saying that I was having with a friend of mine, she put it beautifully. And as soon as she said it, I'm like, oh, someone gave voice to exactly what it is that I experience. And this is relevant to channeling and clairaudience as well, if you are one of those people that possesses that Clair. And it's one of those peculiar sensations where I get a feeling, a really overwhelming, overarching, intense feeling, and it broils inside of me. And from that feeling, words are born. It's like that feeling triggers the language center in my brain, and I'm able to articulate what is simply feeling broiling, boiling, bubbling, stirring away inside of me. And it comes through my language center as words, sometimes with accents, sometimes really, detailed and explicit in the nuance of it. And I find that to be absolutely mind-blowingly fascinating, like absolutely fascinating. The way that people can connect with color, streams of color, and that too can touch the language center of their brain. And from that color comes that level of communication, that clear communication aspect. And so it is a really fascinating and very peculiar and an unusual thing to even talk about, to try to put into words, which is why having these types of conversations is absolutely fantastic, because it helps to give language to a feeling that might otherwise go uncategorized, I suppose. Is that even the right word to say? Perhaps even uncategorized, or may lack description. And this way we get a little bit closer to formulating that descriptive language that helps us to truly convey what it is that intuitives, psychics, mystics and mediums and magic people feel in these moments of heightened intuition when we are connecting with our intuitive, psychic gifts in a really dominant way. So I feel it, and I hear it, I smell it, sometimes I can taste it. And the more I allow space for these gifts to come through, the more I focus on it, the more I give thanks and honor to these gifts, the more they evolve naturally. I remember being quite young and being in my family home, and my sister was a little bit older than I was. We're 4 years apart. So she was able to stay home and I wasn't, so I went out. So she was home by herself and we went out to do, I can't even remember what, because that's not really important or relevant to the story. But when we got back, my big sister was in a bit of a tizzy and we were just like frantic, and she was like, "Can't you smell it? Can't you smell it? I can smell it everywhere." She was panicking and she was really like erratic, and my mother came in and she was like, "Well, what is she smelling?" She's like, "I can smell cigar smoke. I can smell this thick pungent perfumed cigar smoke. It's just everywhere. It's everywhere around me." And we used to have this little offering doll, this little spirit doll of my mother's that used to smoke a cigar. She would light the damn cigar every single day. I don't even want to talk about it. It was a long time ago. Imagine having a cigar burning in your house all day long these days. Like, it just doesn't happen, right? Anyways, this was a thing, and had a little ashtray to catch it, had little petitions stuffed in everywhere, and she's thinking, did I leave a cigar going? Did one of the petitions catch fire? Something like that. We were looking for logical explanations, of course, because just because you're mystical, magical, you're aware, you're tuned in, it doesn't mean that you skip over the practical either. So we were looking for all the practical, and when it was very clear that there was nothing in the physical environment that we were in that could explain this scent, this pungent cigar smoky scent that she was sensing. And so my mother smiled, and I didn't get it because I was quite young, but I didn't get it. And I was just like, what is this? What is it? What is it? And so she sat down and had this beautiful explanation. She allowed the girls to sit at the table. I was sort of half tuning in because I was a little bit interested, because I thought it was a ghost. I still remember it now. It just stays with you. Sometimes these stories just stay with you. But I thought it was a ghost, so I'm thinking, is this a ghost? Do I need to be scared of this? Because I'm terrified of ghosts to this day, folks, okay? I've had experiences and I don't like it, and that's a story for another time. But I was there expecting to hear something about ghosts and praying, fingers crossed, that it wasn't a ghost thing. And she began to explain that the cigar smoke that she was describing was an eshu, and was a spirit of my culture, of, you know, my religion, Umbanda, Candomblé, those types of practices and religious traditions. We have the eshu, and this cigar smoke that she was describing belonged to my grandmother's eshu, which was Selbabon. And he always came to look over us. He'd drop in when we were growing up, and as we were, you know, all separated in the world, well, me over here and the rest of my family over there, I would sense his presence and I would smell that cigar smoke. And this is later on in life, but I remember that explanation so clearly, and it just gave me such a, just like a mind-altering kind of catalytic epiphany style of experience, where I was like, do the spirits see us all the time, no matter where we are? And as a child, I was thinking, even when I'm on the toilet, even when I'm in the shower, like my rational child brain was just horrified by this. I'm like, is there nothing sacred? And I just remember the conversation that I was having with my mother. She's like, they're not here to look at you in the shower or sitting on the toilet. They're here to look after you. They're here to look over you in times of need or to check in. And, you know, it gave birth to this really beautiful, you know, explanation, a language and an explanation that I didn't have prior to that moment. And it's such a great thing to be able to talk about these experiences, because it gives us, again, that language, that explanation when we need it. Because words can be very soothing. When we can put things into certain words, into certain terms, it can be very beneficial. It can bring an enormous amount of peace. It can also solidify a experience to a point where you are then forced to acknowledge the experience that you're having, which again is a very powerful, powerful thing. So being able to give language to our feelings, to the way that our psychic gifts come into being within us, because it is a personal experience. It is something that happens within us and cannot be viewed or seen from the outside, at least not by the vast majority of people. So I would like to hear from you, and I would like for you to tell me how it is that your psychic gifts, your experiences in the realm of the intuitive, in the realm of the Clairs, how do they manifest within you? What does it feel like? I can feel it. I feel things really tangibly inside of myself. There are times where my Clair empathy hits me so hard that I vomit, and I experience peaks of nausea. And this is usually when I'm visiting any kind of trauma site, for instance. Cemeteries and hospitals are very difficult places for me to be at, and I go charmed to the nines with all manner of thing just so that I don't feel the excess of it. But again, it's not something that I turn on and off when I can. I have no control over how it decides to descend upon me or envelop me. So it is my least, I guess, reliable gift in that way. But my inner knowing, my sense of knowing, is perhaps the strongest sense that I have. I have this intensity of just pure, undiluted knowing. A person talking to me in the moment, doesn't matter what situation, I can tell. I just know. Liar, not a liar. Hiding something. Sneaky. You used to be a really nasty person when you were younger, or you gave it up too easy. These facts just assault me, and it's really abrupt the way it does it. I walk through cities and I try not to make eye contact with people for precisely this reason, because if I really pick up on a person, I just hear it. I just feel it and I hear it, and again, it's that feeling that emerges from inside of me, and then it's in the language center of my brain, and then suddenly I'm just like, ooh. It's remarkable how it happens. It's an assault on the senses, and it's very, very, very hard to deal with at times. It's hard to deal with. I have been encouraged, I guess, my whole life to lean into my gifts. On my father's side, on my mother's side, I've been encouraged. So I do believe that I had a little bit of a head start in the sense that when you are born into a family that is very accepting and very nurturing of your spiritual side, it makes a huge difference. And you know, and that in itself is a beautiful thing. And there are many, many people who were fortunate enough to grow up in families that nurtured that other side, whether it be dreams, whether it be, you know, premonitions and feelings and things of that nature. It's not uncommon to hear of people being raised in ways that their gifts were acknowledged, accepted, and encouraged. So it's a beautiful thing, but I still think that there needs to be more of it. There needs to be more encouragement for that, and more space to sit down and have conversations like this to assist young people to gain an insight into the language that will help them to truly describe what it is that they are feeling, because it makes a world of difference. And kids are spongy. They're just spongy for knowledge anyway, so it's a really great time to, you know, to really, you know, give them some very, very important tools. But I don't think that it's just for children. I think that if you've never been encouraged to explore your psychic gifts and your intuitive faculties, etc., there is still time. It's just a muscle that you'll need to start to exercise, and you know, we all get there. Even if you've never acknowledged it before, you've never experienced it before, and I doubt that you've never experienced it. There is always the unexplained story, this moment, this dream, this situation, this feeling. It might have only ever happened once or twice in your life, but it's happened, and it sits outside of the realm of totally ordinary because it's something that you will still think about. Do you know what I mean? So it's something that stands out in your mind. Something that can still be explained away as something quite normal. You could find an excuse for it, but still, it sort of stands out in your mind. And that in itself is a beautiful thing. So it gives you an insight into, you know, what your gifts might be. And I think the best way to go with that is to find your most dominant gift, because that is the one that is going to naturally speak to you the loudest. That's the one that's going to really, really rock your world. And once you really get into tune with that most dominant gift, you will find that others begin to blossom and flourish as well, because it sets off kind of this beautiful psychic chain reaction within the system. And it says, oh, we're allowed to look here. We're allowed to grow now. We're allowed to be here. We're allowed to be seen. She's going to water and feed me. I can grow here now. And it's an amazing, amazing experience. And so I just wanted to have this little conversation with you, because I haven't done a lot of conversational style, topical style chats here for a while. I feel like I've been inundating this space with unboxings, which, don't get me wrong, I love. The Taurus in me loves. But I would love to do more topical style videos, more talking heads. This wasn't a visually amazing video because I'm just sitting here talking to you in my kitchen on a rainy day, having these thoughts. But I felt it was a real heartfelt moment that I wanted to share with you. And I hope that you have something to contribute to the conversation, and I would just love to hear your point of view and love to hear your story if you are willing to share it. If you're a YouTuber, please do a video response. I haven't asked for one for ages, or I hardly ever do. But that would be amazing. I would love to see these more topical style videos circulating. And yeah, all right, beautiful souls. Well, that was it for this Sunday. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope that you've enjoyed it. And don't forget, if you have, give this one a thumbs up. If you really, really liked it, comment below and share it around if it's something that you are interested in doing, because if you think that somebody else will benefit from this conversation, and I hope others will, absolutely, because it is important to have these types of conversations, then by all means share it around. In the meantime, I'm wishing you so much love, luck, peace and joy. Stay awesome, and I will chat to you again soon. Mwah!